Ok, dovremmo essere live, mi dice che siamo live, quindi bene. Innanzitutto dobbiamo aspettare gente, ma per chi fosse arrivato dopo o per chi arriverà dopo, ciao, io sono Jacopo e questa è Economia Polpette, o perlomeno le live di Economia Polpette, che è un podcast che parla di economia. Questa sera qui con me ci sono Dario, che avrete visto se avete visto anche le altre live, e poi ci sarà anche Salvador, e c'è già in realtà Salvador, con cui parleremo questa sera di Venezuela. Ora, come sempre, e sempre dal punto di vista economico, ovviamente. Come sempre, vi faccio un'introduzione perché va dopo. Tutte le origini sono l'origine di tutto questo è un podcast che è fatto bene, mentre queste live noi siamo molto più distesi, parliamo anche a braccio, possiamo dire anche cazzate, ci correggeremo e insomma non prendeteci troppo sul serio, siete puntigliosi perché appunto quando si fa un contenuto in cui si possono mettere dei tagli è facile, si taglia e se ne accorge, quando si dice una roba invece in live la si scopre quando si rivede la puntata. Detto ciò, vediamo un po' quanta gente c'è e poi vi faccio l'introduzione della serata, perché sennò non ha senso che la introduca 60 volte. Innanzitutto, how are you guys? Altra cosa, questa sera è in inglese. Giusto per... Questa sera è in inglese per chi si è collegato, e però se avete problemi, non preoccupatevi, traduco tutto o traduce Dario. Per conto di noi due.
Mi piace questo scarico di responsabilità. Però vabbè.
Anyway, hi guys, how are you? And I was like, how are you so far, actually? Not just the week, but how is it going? Oh, 7 people. Fantastic. Guys, you can talk. I don't have to talk about myself.
It's fine. Yeah, it's been good. Like lately, it's with all these COVID situations, so it's been quite good considering the situation. So it's also you guys are all right, and also thank you for inviting me to the podcast. Really good opportunity. Appreciate it.
No, thank you for being here. Actually, it's like it's a privilege. No, it's not like it's a privilege to have someone who have your background and also have the chance to leave that situation and talk about what happened and what it's that about, basically in first persons, which is really a privilege and honor having you here. So now that I can see we have 7 people and then some other will join. I can also put the banner on the bottom that I put exactly for tonight, saying that tonight is in English, but don't worry, I will translate if needed. Quindi ragazzi, visto che siamo partiti, ve lo dico anche in italiano. Salvador è un mio amico venezuelano, è nato e cresciuto in Venezuela, adesso vive in Regno Unito qui come me. È stato mio collega quando abbiamo lavorato anni fa e ci siamo conosciuti appunto perché abbiamo lavorato assieme. Questa sera gli ho chiesto di partecipare con noi per parlare di Venezuela e un po' farci la storia del Venezuela, per come anche l'ha vissuta lui, che cosa è successo in Venezuela in questi anni, che politiche economiche ci sono state, che scelte sono state compiute dal pre-Chavez, se vogliamo, ad oggi, e vedere anche un po' come si è evoluta la situazione storica ed economica, e lui ci darà poi appunto cosa sta succedendo ora, e mi ha già detto che non vorrà dare opinioni per evitare problemi, e quindi dirà sostanzialmente le cose come stanno. E voi, se avete domande, fategli domande. Fra le altre cose, vi ricordo che su Twitch non ho idea di chi sia online e di chi entri, quindi dite ciao se volete che vi saluti, perché non so chi ci sia. Vedo solo che ci sono 7 persone al momento che stanno guardando. Detto ciò, cosa volevo dirvi? Adesso iniziamo a parlare in inglese. Se avete problemi di qualsiasi tipo, scrivetemelo e io vi traduco quello che c'è da tradurre se non capite. E insomma, in modo tale che vada bene per tutti. Tutto ok? Ditemi anche se i volumi vanno bene, perché non posso regolare i volumi degli altri e quindi magari ci aggiustiamo con i volumi andando avanti, se qualcuno è più alto o qualcuno è più basso. Bon, detto ciò, let's crack on. And thank you, Salvador, for being here. You can introduce yourself and tell us a bit more about yourself.
Yeah, I'm Salvador. Yeah, it's I've lived in Venezuela over 20 years, so I have a big experience of sort of like the economic situation there. Worked. I'm an accountant. Been working a lot. I have also studied a little bit on economics side of things.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's overall the background.
Good. And also, what kind of work did you done? Just like the kind of work in order to know that your, let's say, career background.
Yeah. So I work in Big Four. Um, so look at the different companies as well. So also here, we work here in audit as well. And so yeah, it's working with the different we're working with the consultants inside and the Big Four. So experience different side of the businesses. So it's been quite interesting from like the careers from the career side.
Fantastic. Yeah. Well, we had basically the same kind of career. We worked in Big Four and
Yeah.
then being auditors. So for people who doesn't know what a Big Four is, Big Four is basically big corporation, multinational corporation or consulting. And they are four, and they are the four biggest in the world. That's why Big Four. It's very like that. Nothing more than that. And so, since I have a bit of understanding what was like the history of Venezuela, and I think
Yeah.
there is the same in some other people. But it's good to have like an overview of what was the history of. I
Yeah.
don't want to say like the last 50 years, but like the most recent
Yeah.
history of the country. So we have a context of
Yeah.
what was before the current situation, what was the evolution, and how we got here, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure. No problem. So Venezuela's being quite rich in natural resources, particularly what it's oil. So what happens is usually the government since many years have been using these natural resources, the oil, to finance, let's say, the economy, to propose the economy. There are different projects in the country. There's a component of tax, but that was mainly the main component. So from that point of view, is the government? It's quite active in the economy.
Okay.
There's the private sector, but they're involved in how the economy works and sort of like the base, the economy, how it works. They influence quite a lot. They influence the government.
Okay. So
So
basically, just to have
yeah,
wrap it up. It's basically that there are so many natural resources, and still, since they are natural resources, it's a monopoly by the government to manage them.
uh, I would
Yes or no?
say a bit. I would say yeah, it is. The main, yeah, I mean, the financial side, like how the government finance themselves, it's through the resources, and
Mm-hmm.
that's how they do it. Like, I mean, there's a private sector, but it's
Okay.
sort of like independent. And
No,
usually,
got it.
if they need sort of resources, they can like get some of the resources from the government, like other currencies. So there's negotiation. There's a private sector, but yeah, it's mainly the government is a big actor in the economy.
Okay, got it.
May I ask you something? Does
Yeah.
it work like in Norway? Like there's a sort of government-controlled fund that
Yeah.
handle all resources, all
Yeah.
things,
Yeah.
or okay,
It's always sort of like work like that. Yes. Yeah.
okay. So okay, almost like Norway, yeah.
So yeah.
So basically, part of the funding that the government gets is basically selling these resources. That's what you're
Yeah.
saying. It's like there are taxes, but also money that comes to the government pockets, let's say.
Yeah.
It's also from the resources. Got it.
Yes.
That's interesting
Yeah.
because, for instance, in the UK, where we are, also Italy, where I'm coming from, that's not the case because we don't have many resources. So the government needs other ways to get the money, which is basically taxes.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, yeah, it's how active they are. They're quite active there. So what happens is during the 60s, 70s, there was a huge growth. Like it was like rated one of the sort of like there was a lot of employment. The salaries were good. The government was subsidizing the healthcare, like getting new projects. So it was good during at those time. But then there's what happens with the oil is the price collapse. around the 80s.
Mhm.
So when the price collapse, I mean, that's the main income for the government. So, and you have your active member and you have all these projects. So, okay, what happens is they actually then around that time, the inflation started to increase in 2 digits. It stayed for around 10% for a few years. But then the maximum, it got to a maximum of 84%. And actually, during
Okay.
that time, they're like, it's called Caracaso, that actually were riots. Like people,
Okay.
you cannot get
Just to give like an understanding where we are at in history right now. Like what years was that?
80s.
In
80s.
the 80s. Okay.
80s.
I think
So
it's
in the
almost
80s
like the
already
same
there have
time.
been a. Sorry, I was talking over you.
Yeah,
Say it again.
we've got some issues because there's always overlapping. I'm sorry, but no, it's
Okay,
almost
bro.
the same time as in Italy and in some other countries, mostly for different reasons. But it is we had the same like sort of high
Yeah.
inflation time.
End of
Yeah.
80s, beginning of 90s. Yes.
Yeah.
So basically, hyperinflation, or let's say very high inflation, was something that in history of Venezuela was also present in the past.
It was present. Yeah, it was present. So it's quite different the situation now, like particularly percentage. But yeah, it's always sort of being like 2 digits, ranging from 15, 20 to 80, and late 90s, 100% sometimes. So even before the actual government.
May I ask you something? As we experienced in Italy almost the same problem for different reasons, as I said, like very high inflation, couple of digits at least, sometimes even higher. Government in Italy started to pursue some policies to regulate salaries, wages, and make them increase as well.
In Italy, we call it
Scala
scala
mobile.
mobile,
Esatto.
which is basically the escalator.
Exactly.
The translate.
I was wondering, did something happen? Something similar happened also in Venezuela, or
The government took the different measures to sort of like tackle that. Fix of wages, there's like a minimum wage, but like not directly from the wage. The main problem is you can't do those sort of things, but the main problem is where actually that money is coming from to actually compensate that increase. Is it like you're increasing this, but then you're increasing more taxes elsewhere, and then you're kind of like compensating. So it'll be interesting just to get a little bit more of background. But since again, I'm not entirely familiarized with how the taxes or the main income from Italy is, but it'll be good like to sort of get that idea. But I can actually explain a little bit more details, like some of the things that happen or so the implementation that the government did to tackle inflation.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'd be glad.
Just before going that and seeing like having like a background in history. So basically, usually when we talk about history and economics in Europe, we think about like Second World War. It's basically like a division of what was like the prehistory of modern economics and the current one. So after the Second World War, there was a big boom and explosion of economics, and I guess that in the 50s and 60s and maybe 70s, US were very influential in South America, I would say. And you've been very, like, let's say, helped in a way by the American government. And what was like the situation when there was a huge influence from the US there?
Do you mean in the around 60s, 70s, or in general?
Up to the point where they left, because
So again, one of the issues with the oil industry, the American companies help a lot with the industry. I mean, the technical side, because the oil in Venezuela, it's heavy, like really heavy. So almost no refineries can process it. So very particular ones, the ones in the States, and there was some particular ones in, there's like 2 or 3 different refineries also in Venezuela that can process it.
Otherwise,
So
you have basically to ship it away to somewhere else where they were able
you
to do
can
it.
ship it away, but the problem is it's literally it's contaminated oil. There's so many things in the oil that you need to sort of like clean the sulfur, lots of sulfur. So you need to process it, and that's complicated. And that's why you need complex and particular refineries for that oil. Some of the things that the government actually implemented is because it's not everywhere. It's just a particular side. Say this is the country. A particular side, it's really heavy. Other one is quite light oil, like almost as light as the Arabic oil, which is you can distillate it quite quickly. But what they're doing is injecting the light oil into the again, put it back in the ground and mix it up and put it, and that's how some of the things are distracting. They're using different techniques, but so basically, with the Americans, sorry, going back to your question.
Yeah, no, that's interesting because I have no idea there were different kinds of oil. To be honest, I'm not an expert in that, but I guess
that's why you have
different resource there. It's more like known.
Yeah. So the quality, different, how contaminated it is with other resources. So the best is the Arabic one. The best is the Arabic that you find in the Middle East.
But Brent has an higher price.
Yeah.
Because it's the oil from the Northern Sea, nearby UK.
Yeah.
So
there are different categories. Like you have Mesa, you have different. Mesa is actually middle class. So yeah, it's different kind of oils. Sorry, you're gonna say something.
So I have a question from one of our listeners, which is
yes,
Ribomboklat. I don't know why they use like these nicknames, but okay. So he's asking, or she's asking, cosa ha portato il Venezuela a fare questo tipo di accordo con Cuba riguardo al petrolio? So what brought like Venezuela to make like an agreement, a deal with Cuba, with the petrol? So they reach an agreement with Cuba.
So what happens is, what happened?
Yeah, sorry.
So I mean, there was like, so what happens is one of the policies from the actual government with Chavez went in is they wanted to help, let's say, the people in need. So they have a lot of different types of political, let's say, projects, social projects they wanted to implement. And one of it is like medical assistance, free medical assistance for like the poor, for people with not enough resources. So they have different like medics located. So they use Cuban assistance for some of these projects, social projects. Basically, what happens is, okay, it's free for the people, but the government had to pay the Cuba. So one of these is just agreements they receive. It's basically in oil. So
okay,
you provide us with professional assistance in different places. We ship you oil.
Was this part of the Pan America project? The attempt to make like all South America all together working together?
I mean, it'll be different project, but the idea would be it's pretty much the same. Like the concept is the same.
Yeah, just because I've been to Cuba like a couple of years ago, so I remember that they were talking about that. And actually, there's like a very strict relationship between Cuba and Venezuela. Like Chavez there is the same as Fidel Castro and
because Fidel wanted to also assist the Cubans as well. So he had out a little bit like friendly policies for the Cubans as well. So sort of trying to help them. Yeah.
So basically, there were like these policies which were like across countries, and a way to pay them was to give them petrol in order to compensate for the help.
Yeah.
Understood. Fantastic. And when was this in time? To be honest, I have no idea when Chavez started to be like.
It's easy. You could say 2000.
Okay. Basically, 20 years ago. Okay.
Yeah. Well, there was like a few months in 1999, but 2000.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Like it. Yes. 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. So basically, from the 80s, there was like this hyperinflation, which was due to the petrol, basically.
Yeah. The oil price crashed, and whatever happens after what happens after it is the government, since it's quite active, they need to still pay for this program, so they withdraw some of the resources. The wages decrease, low wages, high unemployment during the 80s, and it pretty much remained the same. So there was like, and also what happens is some of the state, let's say the industries that were extracting oil, is like it was owned by, let's say, most of the oil they were extracting, not most of it, but a high percentage, it's actually owned by the industry, and the rest it was given to the government at that time. So they were not really getting the entire revenue from the extraction. So yeah, in the 90s, it was pretty much remain a little bit the same. Not much changes, like 2-digit inflation. But there was an increase in poverty as well, like from 30 to around 30% to 60%. So, and the acquisition power is, at the time in the 90s, it was like a third of like the 70s. So it's quite impacted a lot of the situation that then led the success of the current government.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, may I ask you how people managed to survive? Like, because there was not, I think, a time of strong immigration or whatever, like now, or I think at least. I mean, if wages stayed the same, and and you can buy 1/3 of the things you could buy like 10 years earlier.
Yeah.
How did people manage to survive?
So it's complex, since there's different things happen. Let's say the government wanted to keep things, let's say, affordable for the people. They implemented different things. So what happens is, at the beginning of their government, like from 2000, 2003, it was still the same problems, like inflation problem. Actually, the international reserves went down because people were like, the currency, high inflation, let's just invest in a stronger currency, because most of the reserves is like dollars. So what happens is they said, look, we need to stop this, so the reserve doesn't go any lower. So they lock the exchange trading, so you cannot exchange anymore with any currency. And so what after that, what happens is they say like, look, and actually we're locking the price, so it's going to be 2 point something. They gradually increase it over the years, like 4, 6, then they keep increasing it way over time. But then let's say, and they use these rates to actually give the imports, because in Venezuela, like, you have to import everything. There was some local production, but everything is imported pretty much. Like it's quite technical. From the, let's say, we pretty much say oil. That's 90% of the income from the country. So you can importing, so you can find this sort of like very cheap products that you can find in the supermarket. So people with low income could sort of like afford these products. But there's obviously a downside for these kind of things, particularly when you're locking prices, so there's a downside. So that's what happened. But the thing is, around the 2004, 2014, the price for the barrel skyrocketed. If you recall, it was like from $20 to $80, $100, $125. So actually, they had that good boom of oil that actually managed to fulfill some of their promises, like giving free housing to people with low income. So yeah, that helps them quite a lot to give them. But that, of course, increased, like they were just spending.
Okay.
Most of the
I can imagine, because they have to compensate in some way that the fact that there was inflation. That basically they were the one bearing, let's say, the inflation, but they were spending in order to cope with inflation. So Chiara is asking, just to see this in perspective, how much does a loaf of bread cost in Venezuela?
It's hard to. I mean, it's a little bit hard to answer the question because it depending on the moment of time.
Yeah, with
At
the
the
high
beginning,
inflation, you mean it's
yeah, because
fluctuating a
again,
lot.
when the oil barrel was high, the currency. I mean, there was inflation again, 2 digits. So it was increased weekly. But what happens is, I'll jump back a little bit more to the late 2010, late 2018, 16. So the inflation is like 3-4 digits.
Okay, inflation 3-4 digits means that is between 900% and
A year,
1,000%.
yearly.
Yeah, yearly,
So,
but yeah, okay, divided by 300 and something, it means that you have like at least 3-4% a day.
yeah. So it kept increasing. The government tried to tackle it different ways, but it's really difficult. I mean, the loaf of bread. I'll try to use, instead of the bread, more local research sort of thing, because bread is wheat, and wheat you need to export it. Import it, and it's really expensive. So
Okay, so that's already like a statement saying that, well, not a statement, but like interesting to know that wheat is something you basically import, and it's very expensive to import, so you don't
So
even
what
have bread.
happens
And you
is the government forbid, let's say, look, you need to sell. They give sort of like a list of 20, 30 different basic products like oil, meat, and regulated the prices. This meat, you cannot sell it over let's say $2-3. You cannot. And actually, they tell the people, like, if you see someone selling higher than that, please let us know. We'll take action of it. So that, again, positive, negative effects impacting along the way. So, sorry, I mean, it's difficult a bit to answer, but yeah, the inflation, and there's also different factors. Actually, I like to go through some of these consequences that cause inflation.
Yeah, just let me. There's another question, and we can move on. So Fede is asking if you consider like Venezuela as a petrol state, as she look on internet, and basically there are contrasting views on this. And how do you find that? Thank you.
It's a petrostate. Yes, because there was some sort of like internal production before. Venezuela was very and actually still like one of the best. Like, for example, the cacao beans, like, it's used for chocolate. Like, one of the highest qualities is used for, or was used for, like, Swiss chocolate and things like that. So so there was like some sort of exports that wasn't petrol based, but as things, it's more affordable. It's a bit easier just to extract the oil and just sell it. So yeah, I think it's for a long time it's been a petrostate. Yeah.
So the main resource is petrol.
Yeah.
Got it.
There are other resources, natural resources, because you have the Amazon forest on the south. Because let's say, South America is like this. You have like the Amazon forest, which is mainly Brazil, and there's like 2 states that goes also the Amazon, and there's like lots of natural resources that gold, all the different ones that also I used to sell.
Interesting.
And it's all sold by the government.
Yeah, because it's managed like as a monopoly, I guess.
Yeah, in a way, yes.
What do you mean in a way?
I
It's
mean,
either
because
or.
it is companies, but again, it's the state it's involved in the activity, or if it's extracted by the, let's say, the private companies, but in order to sell it, you need to give it to the government for them to sell it. So yeah, you could say it's sort of like a monopoly. Yeah.
Okay, Lorenzo is asking, what do you think about what happened in the future in Venezuela? But I think we're gonna go through this question later on. So, but thank you for the question. We will get to that point. So
Yeah.
let's move on. Yes, talking about like basically there have been through the history of Venezuela, there have been like the petrol was something big, so influenced a lot. Then there was inflation due to like in the 80s and 90s, and the government tried to tackle it in a way which was basically, and I'm just saying this because I've been also doing a lot of stuff for the stream, so I got distracted. So also to recap for myself, so the government was trying to cope with inflation, putting like state prices. So let's say you have to sell at this price, and also trying to put like a fixed exchange rate with other currencies. Is that correct?
Yes. So for food and medicines, it was a fixed exchange rate. So there are companies that importers that they can only use that exchange rate to bring, obviously, like the product, the basic products, for at least to cover the base necessities of the people. Until they wanted to, they used different measures as well to try to tackle it. But yeah, again, it's pretty much like, imagine like a cartoon where you try to tap the holes of where the water is coming, but it's always a new hole with more water pouring. So yeah. But I mean, during that time, when the barrel of oil was quite high in price, it felt like, despite there was inflation, but I mean, the government had a lot of like income to spend on the project, so it was sort of like it was a good time in a way that, so because in particular for people low resources, again, the government invested in a lot of social projects, but again, that increased a lot of the spent money. So actually, when the barrel went down again, it's actually when you start looking at all the different problems that, actually, we don't have the same amount of income that we had for 10 years. So we need to, find a way to sort of like recover. So then you have to actually cut different programs. So one of the things, like, for example, I'd like to mention that happened. With all these obligations, like you have to pay the pensions, you have to pay all these public people that work in the public sector, finance your social programs. So the money needs to come from somewhere. So one of the things is they sort of like, one of the things to keep printing money, sort of like to compensate that. To let's say keep the promises, and also try to improve a little bit like the quality of life.
So basically, when people were asking and demanding for currency and for money, they were just printing it.
For local, yes. And if you wanted to go and you needed, for example, to travel outside, you actually need to apply with the government and submit. It was like documentation explaining why you need the currency, what you're going to do with the currency. Submitted that, and they'll give you $2,000. I mean, if it's like a normal person, like they could give you. At first, it was like 5,000 a year. They allowed you to exchange. Then it was 2,000, and they just went lowering the amount you can actually get.
Yeah, it was kind of high, I would say.
But it was at a sort of like a preferential rate, because the government was selling you that currency like really, really low rate, because or it was either that or get it into the black market, where it was like sometimes 30 times the price that the government get. gave, because it's like the government. Okay, I'll sell it to you in an example. I don't have the rates now, but like I sell you $1, you need 20 bolivares, which is like the local currency, or you go to the black market. Instead of 20, you had to pay 2,000 or more. So it was really good. Everyone is like, okay, people even buying like gift cards in Amazon and then just resell it. Oh, actually, I have a gift card in Amazon. Would you sell it to me and sell it in the black market and things like that? So yeah, it's interesting things like people like when you don't earn enough, you do all sort of things like to get by. Honestly,
can imagine. So basically, the government, to stop like the inflation, was rationalizing the money they were providing to people. But on the other side, since it was rationalized, basically not rationalized, maybe it's not the right word, but there was basically a quota per person, and then in order to cope with that, there was a black market with people because they need more than that, and they need to exchange the money.
But that is if you actually need the to actually exchange your currency, because for example, people with low income, they really don't see the value of exchanging it, because I mean, honestly, with how much inflation is impacting you, you only can afford like the products that the government like fix the prices. You can probably afford one or two things more, but that's it really. You were reliant on the products and services, not services, but well, even services, because it's all regulated as well, like services like the gas that you get, like electricity, everything was regulated. It costs just pennies, cents just to pay for that. And actually, one of the things like I like to mention the consequences of deflation is, so yeah, one of those like the low wages. Like what happened is when you have inflation of 3 digits is, for example, you have to study, work, and usually your wage is like $10 a month. So imagine just studying all these years, over 15 years of your life, and just to earn $10 a month. So people are just like, look, there's just like, why working on that? So people move to more like informal market. So it's basically retailing or jobs that you can sell by commission, because with commission, your earnings, it's attached of how much you're selling, and you're basically compensating for that inflation factor. So arose in informal market. Also people like in black market. So everything, if you want to get something, you need to use the exchange rate that is at the borders, because we have land borders with the neighboring countries like Colombia. So you're using that exchange rate that is at the border that dictates how much is the price of black market. I'm just so you can give an idea. This is around 2010. So well, 2015, 16. So to give you an idea of the time period that I'm explaining. So obviously, what happens is everything is imported. So with really cheap prices, what people do is pretty much what we see is scalping. So you go to a supermarket, like, oh, I can get this fixed price meat. So I'm not gonna buy what I need. I'm gonna buy as much as I can, and then just resell
to Colombia and resell it.
No, not necessarily. You can just literally go to the store. You have, or either, for example, you're a butcher. You go to the any supermarket, like, oh, I have all this. I buy it all cheap. Go to my butcher store and actually sell it 4 or 5 times the price.
So basically, who had the money was the one running the situation because they can afford to purchase in bulk and then resell it.
Yeah. So it was a lot of reselling, informal and black market, because again, when you have high demand, but the offer it's dependent of how quickly the government is able to keep importing more. So the government, so some people abuse, let's say, part of the system because, yeah, I mean, it was possible for them to do it, really. Also, one of the things, so you have shortages, like you can even Google it if you like shortages even of toilet paper, things like that. You find shortages of all different things because people were like stockpiling and then sell it 3 or 4 times the price because, yeah, it's what happens. And all
so
these
basically
things,
the inflation in a way was very driven by the black market, since the situation was like a stuck economy with fixed stuff, a fixed quantity, fixed prices, was allowing people which has more money to collect all those people, not collect, purchase and resell it and create a black market with way higher prices. So basically the inflation was fueled by this very controlled, let's say, economy.
yeah, it was fueled. And again, because you have all these obligations, since the government is quite active in the economy, you have to keep paying. But how do you keep paying? I mean, for example, again, you had really low oil prices. You have lots of like, let's say, things that you need to, how can I say it? Pay for. Like you pay public, you have to pay for imports, you have to pay all this. So, and you still need to pay wages. Like, okay, so is it just print money? Let's just start printing money to pay all these people. But again, everyone, just imagine if everyone has 20 million, it's like you go to the next store, it's like, oh, I'm gonna pay $1 for that loaf of bread. Now, the guy in the store, like everyone has 1 million. It's like, okay, no, actually, that loaf of bread is 5,000.
Exactly. That's exactly how it is. And we talk about this like in previous lives when we were discussing videos with people talking about the stuff that they were talking about, the constitutional money, which doesn't exist as a thing, but they were talking about this and saying that the economy as it is now, it's driving people crazy and creating wars. If the government will be the one owning the money, they can print the money and everyone will be rich. And Venezuela, and that's why I thought about you, because I was like, I remember that Venezuela was doing that and didn't work well. So.
Yeah. No, the government, I'm not gonna say how like some of the things they really wanted to, like to improve on the quality of life, but the thing is, again, when you're so active in the economy and you fix a lot of things in the economy, things start to like pour everywhere.
Exactly,
also,
because there are many variables. It's not just like that you move something, everything else will be fixed.
And also, even for example, I told you there was a fixed exchange rate for basic products. But what happens is there's nothing more lucrative than you get, for example, you get for each dollar you pay almost nothing for that dollar to import the product. Okay, but then what happens is you're not selling it cheap. You actually then sell it at a bond market. So this is all your cost that you get in the dollars from the government, and this is like your profit. So some people getting really, really rich, abusing a little bit of the system implemented. So it's like every time they try to like implement something, there was like a way to abuse it from people, and actually, then
you're talking to two Italians. In Italy, we say you make a rule, you make a way to avoid it.
Yeah.
It's not exactly like that in Italian, but that's basically the gist of it.
So
we definitely get that.
Yeah. So there were other things as well, like they fixed the prices again. I mean, in essence, it's not a bad thing for a few products. The problem when they fix prices, and when I'm talking fixed prices, is this list of 30, 40 items. So companies can, like private sector, can sort of like take the hit because they were selling other things like beverages, things like that. So compensating. Okay, I'm losing money because there were some of these prices were like below the cost, so they were losing money by. But the government tells you like, look, you cannot stop producing this. You cannot. You have to produce it. You have to
At
buy
this
it,
price.
sell it at this price. So, but again, some companies, I mean, they were
Marginal
getting by.
cost.
Yeah, but some companies were because the inflation kept going, and I'll explain a little bit on detail on that on another point. But
yeah, before going with that, I want to get back
Yeah.
to a question that Ribomoklat said before, which was considering like the high inflation, which was basically which was threatening a lot of people to buy. Basically, it was difficult for people to buy. How did like the shops manage or commercial activity manage the situation and kept to be open, like the smaller one?
Or even
So,
the bigger one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
either.
so it's basically let me see if I'm getting the question right. So is it basically the stock, how they keep the stock?
No,
It's more about
how the retail chain or supermarkets or
any activity,
in general,
commercial activity.
any
let's say.
commercial activity stayed open, managed to stay open despite the inflation that probably many people do not buying.
Yeah, I mean, what happens is the small retailers. I mean, people were not really have like enough to buy, because when you have, again, you earn very few dollars a month in the exchange rate or the acquisition power, you have to close. You cannot like. I mean, it's a very particular like when you have to decide either, okay, do I buy the food or do I buy the TV? It's like I need to go for the essentials. So lots of not all of them. There were still like some people like there were still the people middle class, high class. They're still buying. So not everything is closed, but like the small retailers that weren't selling, like they struggled quite a lot, and they actually sometimes had to close. And yeah.
So basically, the shops that were struggling, they were closing, and the other one, which were open, they were the one also gathering, as you were saying before, the stock and reselling it at the higher prices in a way.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you can find the supermarkets were still open and find the regulated products, but the thing is, when you go to the supermarket, you cannot find the regulated products. You just see it like the empty. That's like, okay, actually we have this. You have the sticker with the name of the product.
Yeah, with empty shelf. Yeah.
Empty shelves.
No.
And also they found another way, like for example, they say like on the law, because it was stated in the law. This, for example, there's like a particular cut of meat that it's regulated. So it's like, oh, actually, there are other cuts of meat that is not regulated. So I'm going to sell the other ones, or actually that parts of the meat that are regulated, you just grind it and sell it as a different part for more like not a no below cost price. So people like getting smarter. I try to again avoid all these regulated prices.
And the government didn't acknowledge that people were manipulating sort of manipulating the list. Like if you give me a list of 20, 30 articles, I got a fixed price. I'll try to find a way to, as you just said, avoid selling something that is on that list. Just cover it up somewhere. And
no, I mean there were people that were caught, like people caught and forced to close, or because you had to pay penalties for like I cannot pay for this, so you close the stores. So the thing is, what happens is there's a moment when you say like, look, you start to get unsensitive to this kind of abuse, because it's like, okay, if I tell the right thing to do is tell the government, look, this guy is overselling and overpricing the merchandise. But on the back of your mind, you say, okay, if I say that, probably this guy's just going to close shop, or it's just not going to sell that. It's just not going to sell that those products. I'm just going to sell whatever, anything else that is just not regulated. So you cannot find these products except you go for this black market, for these people that are well connected that can find these cheap products.
Okay, so was it an endemic basically situation in which you couldn't do much about that? Because otherwise it would be against you even like say something about the situation. So what about the corruption? I don't know if you can talk about that, but or you want to talk about that, but how about the level of corruption in this current situation? I know the level of corruption in Italy, which we are in a European country and still not in the same kind of situation, but there is a level of corruption. And how about that? Like, I don't know, or military, like, not imposition, but like presence in daily life. Well, don't answer if you don't want to, but yeah, just questions that pop up in my head.
This is just my opinion. I don't have really. Corruption exists everywhere. I mean, I really don't think there's any sort of government that's clean.
Of course.
But on this case, I mean, again, I don't have an opinion on this, but I'll just let you guys draw your own conclusion. You had there was a massive oil price for 10 years, and then you have all these inflation problems afterwards. So
okay,
that's just my
yeah, I get it.
Yeah, may I ask you something else instead?
Yeah.
Like about the second, the black market, that it's a sort of second market, the real market, let's say, because whenever you don't find anything on the regulated market, you go to the second market. Was it some sort of there was some sort of organization? Was it structured? Was it sort of known laws almost everywhere, or was it something like more hidden that you had to go through friends that knows someone that knows his cousin and so on?
It was gradually. It was at the beginning. Yeah. Sorry, on the 2014s. It's a bit hidden, like, but after years pass by and you see like people seeing like a bit of an action from, let's say, the governmental entities. It's actually more open. You could go, for example, just imagine the market in Marrakesh. Just imagine it, like, everyone has their little store selling their things, and it was pretty much like that. Like in several places, like it was just popular markets, but with really expensive products. But you could find almost like all the basic products. You can find them there. But there's also another problem with that, because, for example, if you're looking at, for example, detergent, like soap, where you clean your clothes. So, no, actually, something a bit more, something easier. Let's say you have your fizzy drink, like let's say you have a Coca-Cola.
Okay.
Let's say you have that. So what happens is, don't ask me how, but like they manage to, let's say, actually what they're doing is they drain half of the Coca-Cola and then fill it with water and then fill it to the top. And then I don't know how they bother it up again. And then they sell it to you at full price. So the quality of the products were like really, really low because they tampered with the product.
Basically diluted in a way. It was like the quantity was like the poor quality going around.
It's the same. You see it, it's the same color, same thing. But when you open it, no gas. And it's like, it's tampered.
I definitely get the sense of it. You open no gas.
The problem is like you open it, and it's like, okay, it's not like, oh, I'm gonna fill it with clean water. It could be whatever. So you're losing the product basically. But again, it's just a guy there. It's a popular market. Those guys move around, they disappear. So it's difficult to also, you need to buy something that it's quite sealed, that it cannot be tampered with. Well, you have to take your risk sometimes to get some of those products.
And still staying on this black market, popular market, and so on, what was the stance of the government towards this? Because I believe that government officials knew that there was something like that happening.
Yeah. The problem is the government tried to tackle it, make it like a bit more official markets. Let's say, given the sort of like infrastructure, some of them, not all of them, like the bigger ones. And they had officials but the problem is, you can have the government telling you, okay, yeah, we're doing this, we're sending someone, but then the guy that goes there says it's pretty much like what happened with the gangs. Is that you pay to these officers so they don't tell you you're selling overpriced.
Okay.
So there's a lot of corruption at a little level, saying
of course,
I'll give you a part of my revenue, just don't say anything.
Well, of course, it's something that I've seen that in many, many countries. I remember when I've been sent to Nigeria, it was exactly the same. It's
and the thing is,
the situation, and also when you consider that like a public servant, even if it's an officer or something, it's paid with an amount of money which is decreasing over time, and their income is not very high. It's very easy, basically, to, let's say, oil the gears.
Minimum wage. So it's basically the way they get by.
Yeah, exactly.
Like in many, many countries where there are some kind of issues like that. For example, also Morocco, I knew that you got to have some cash on you just in case you get the police, so you can get away without problems. Because if you don't, they're gonna find a problem anyway. So
they're gonna find a problem anyway. So I mean, there are many cases. Like some histories go from that. I experienced a couple of them myself, but it's okay. I mean, what can you do? You had to, as you said, have some money there to. It's even funny how they ask you. It's oh, can you help me? Give me a little bit donation. It's
That reminds me when I was in Nigeria, that we basically have been stopped every single crossroad, and they were saying, a family home, and what we get is not that high. And I was like, are you just begging for money, or are you doing the cop job? Because I'm not getting it.
But this is people. These are literally sometimes it's not all. I'm not gonna tell you it's not all, but you came across a police officer stop there, give me a little help there.
It's helping each other at the very end of the day.
It's
supporting
me.
as a country.
It's not like I'm a millionaire. I have to give them money.
I can imagine.
But again, I mean, you understand why they're doing it. It's not they're criminals, but but then it gives the opportunity for people to start abusing at the different levels, so again, the prices. And also to answer a little bit the question about the fixed prices. So if for example there's a big company that they say, look, I cannot work under these conditions, we're closing. So what happens is the government did a lot of nationalizations. They nationalized a lot of companies.
Yeah, no, actually, there's another question that comes up now, which I think the answer almost the same. And thank you for the question. It's really brilliant. I haven't thought about that. Come viene organizzata la produzione? So how it is organized, the production of essential services, let's say utilities, electric energy, or water. How is it sustainable with the cost, since basically it's like that? And how about the not urbanized areas? How is it in rural parts?
Or rural areas? Okay. Yeah, for services, I can only rural areas. I cannot entirely. I mean, I'm a city person, so I really cannot say how entirely sure it worked from, let's say, outside. But I can give you an idea because there's like there's some areas of the city that it's like Brazil, like favelas. Like you have these sort of like improvised housing on the hills of in the city. So the electricity wise for the utilities, I mean the system was already there, and for electricity it's subsidized by the government, and it's I forgot how's it called. It's water, like when you have like
hydraulic
a dam, hydraulic,
dams.
yes,
Hydraulic dams.
So it's that pretty much, and it's that and burning coal, like thermoelectric plants burning
Not
coal.
oil. I thought they were using mostly oil, or for
Yeah, but it's
But,
better to
yeah.
sell it, not burn it.
Okay.
We
Fair
prefer
point.
just to burn the coal and get. But I mean, that's like probably 25% of the electricity, and the rest is just hydroelectric. That'll cover the electricity. For the water, yeah, I mean water. It's like you're connected to the pipes, or you buy big bottles like tanks. You actually can buy like trucks with massive tanks of water just to get delivery when you have shortage of water. And for the gas, again, if you're connected in the main city, it's fine. And all of this is subsidized by the government. All the services, like you literally pay nothing. So you can actually, it's the same when you go on fuel. It's the cars a long time ago, not now. It was subsidized. You actually pay like probably 10 cents of euro just for a full tank. So you could just drive everywhere. It's like super cheap.
But since you're a petrol country, I guess like the petrol wasn't that expensive there.
That was when my.
It's not like here, as it is like. Well, in Italy it's expensive, but here in the UK it's crazy expensive.
So, and for the gas, it's you literally need to buy like there's like kitchens. You have like I don't know how to say it, your gas tank. Basically, you go, they refill it, if you can find it. If you can find it though, someone to refill the tanks, and you cook. You have like your kitchen there. So that'll be from the rural side, but yeah.
But basically, everything is managed by the government. Is nationalized. Is not like managed by companies.
Yeah, but the utilities were like nationalized a long time ago. Like
I can imagine,
because it's sort of like, okay, look, we're using a lot of oil. You're paying a little bit of taxes, and it's subsidized. So same as oil. Oil was subsidized for a long time ago. They removed it recently, like 2-3 years ago, something like that. Yeah, it's
And all the utilities are for free, basically paid by the government. And
okay. Actually, let me just clear that. For, let's say, if you're connected to the let's say the mainstream of, let's say, the utilities, you pay it. It's subsidized. It's really really cheap. But in rural, actually, what happens is for electricity, they use the
power generator on power, like the gas oil generator. Yes.
No. You know that the streets are lighted. The I forgot how it's called. Like the poles that generate electricity that lights the street at night. I forgot how it's called. So they.
Like, you mean the electricity pole?
Yeah,
and
the electricity
just
pole.
attached to the electricity pole.
Yeah. So basically, they just you can see electricity pole, and there's like 20 different wires that provide electricity to different houses. So
it happens in Italy. I can guess it's happening there.
Okay, got it.
So basically, they just get the electricity from the pole, but it's basically it's like black market as well.
Yeah, black market. Well, it's cheap. I mean, you're not paying anything for it.
Yeah. Just to touch yourself.
Yeah.
to the main network. Okay, got it. And instead for the gas and stuff, is there a black market, or are they buying that from
the black market itself is for gas in rural on these places. You actually need to find the right person to sort of like, I mean, the government gives them, they fill them, but it's what happens afterwards. It's like there's always an intermediary that
sell to the final person. Yeah,
it needs to make a living, and well,
scheme of the price, let's say.
yeah.
He's a reseller in a way.
Yeah. Pretty much.
Okay, got it.
But another thing that I'm curious is, as you said, a lot of companies were nationalized. So was probably, I suppose this was going on since the 80s, probably not just now. I mean, it's a process that took some time. So most of the workforce in Venezuela is public, I guess. And are salaries, wages defined by the government? I mean, if the government decide wages on a side, well, I'm just thinking.
What I trying to ask?
I mean, but the thing is, like, they give you wages, but it's they never really try to fix wages, because I mean, what happens is they give every year. There was like an announcement around March, the president saying like, look, we're going to increase the minimum wage like 2-3 times the minimum wage. So it helps for a month, but again, you're not really tackling. You're just printing more money, adding more fuel to the fire.
True. Well, actually, if the money are basically generated by printing more money, that's the case. So actually, I wanted to understand if it's just is if the government is creating new Venezuelan bond which are sold also abroad, or if it's just printing money. Because if you're selling those bonds abroad, basically you're not printing money in a way, because you are getting those money from abroad.
Yeah, no, there were, I'm not entirely sure of the timeline, but there was a like PDVSA. It's called like the main industry, like the Venezuelan industry of oil. So they were selling bonds like with really interesting, let's say, it's coupons, like coupons that you redeem after 10, 15 something years. The problem is at first it was really attractive to the market, but they actually paid some of them, but then they start.
I like that you underline they actually paid some of them. It means that they didn't pay others.
No, because I mean, the thing is, Venezuela, like before, it was always been complying, like paying the debts. Even the current government, they've done it, but the thing is that they've been struggling with, after the crash of the oil price, they were struggling with, okay, where am I getting all this money that I'm getting the debt? So one of the things they've been doing is like getting more investment from the Chinese, or getting more investment from different sides, and actually then you're saying, okay, I'm paying this person, I'm using this for, but it's a lot of things that they need to pay and manage. So it gets trickier for them. And also some of these nationalized companies closed, because one of the things that, and this is my personal opinion, like when you have a company, you have people that it's, let's say, you have an industry, you're interested, let's say, in innovating your product, you're interested in see if you can make a little bit more revenue, you're interested in generating, I need more people, I need more customers. When it's nationalized, you just do sort of like the minimum, like let's say, to cover, we're not improving. So it sort of like went behind.
We have the same opinion, and I can tell you, in other countries which are doing the same, is exactly the same. In wherever you go, if you nationalize something, the productivity, let's say, it's not the same. The efficiency is not the same. The pricing is not the same, and there's a lot of waste. And even if, there are some companies actually in Italy which there is a huge influence of politics and government, which are super technological. The problem is that they tend to be not very efficient in all the profit they do. So basically, they make a lot of profit. They are very efficient in a way or another, but they find a way to exploit, let's say, that profit that doesn't go to the shareholders in a way or another. Even though it's not the same situation, I would say, that you might have there, but it happens everywhere. That's what I guess. That's what I wanted to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go on. Sorry.
No, go on. No problem.
Yeah. No, it's fine. I mean, I was just about to mention something else.
No, I was just wondering. Well, besides, it's not really true. I mean, most Italian corporations they have a participation, some sort of a part of government, not really, but still, it's too sort of true. But the thing I was wondering is about the banking system in Venezuela, because I suppose that it will be, of course, nationalized, I guess. So how does it work? Because the banking system, as we know in Italy, like in UK, works on getting the deposit from the customers and lending money to firms or to other people to buy houses or whatever, and so on. And they're making a profit on the difference between the rate they pay the deposit and the rate they pay they get the loans. What about Venezuela?
With the banking, it's a bit complex. Unfortunately, let's say that the worst thing you can do in inflation is keep your money. With inflation of 2 or 3 digits, you want to buy a house. I mean, the problem is banks were not giving that much of coverage, because I mean, you buy a house, but then is it a fixed price? But then what? The house is going to be like valued 3-4 times later. So it's banks were like sort of like protect themselves on that way. And if you, for example, I forgot what I was going to say. So deposits, again, people who were not really like saving money. Like, you have to spend your money because
exactly, because with the high inflation, basically tomorrow they will be worthless. So today, you know how they value, tomorrow it will be.
Even our call, like hearing radio programs and everything, like spend your money. Just buy a washing machine, do whatever, just keep it there. You're probably will be able to resell it and keep a little bit of value of the money that you have. So honestly, unfortunately, I cannot really say, like, from the lending side of view. I'm not entirely sure how the thing evolved, but that was pretty much the situation. Like, banks were not really giving much money because they're also struggling with the currency, because again, you have piles and piles of money, like in the vaults. You have piles. Like, what are you going to do with that?
If you have if you have like an inflation rate which is like in terms of 4 digits, so more than 1,000 per year, it means that really you are piling paper, literally piling paper.
Yeah, that was like, I remember I saw people like you look at them, it's normal. Like, I mean, normal. Let's say it doesn't look like they're not carrying money, but then they get literally in front of the cashier, and we don't. Everything is like here. The banking is quite good, the online service and all that. No, you want to do a transaction, you need to go to the bank. And it was like, I remember that I had to do a few diligence and things. So the people, you look at it, doesn't carry money, and then they open their belt, they open their shoes, and they take piles and piles of money. Because if they look like you're carrying a lot of money, then they're probably going to steal it, like, from you. There's a lot of crime there as well. Also part of
also because it's really easy to steal your money, since it takes a lot of volume, so it's really difficult to hide them.
Yeah, and it's the same when you buy like a big market, when you go to a supermarket, you're carrying like 5-6 bags. So you're like, I hope no one goes by and just take my shopping. Just hope it doesn't happen. So you cover. Actually, what you do is you grab the plastic bags, you put two or three, so people cannot see what's inside. Like, it's not easy to see what kind of products you have, because if you have like a really easy product, like that it's shortage, people are just gonna either harass you where you got it, how much you buy it, or want to pay you for it or steal it. So it's like a lot of different things. Also, another thing that what happened is at the border with the fuel, again, as I mentioned, is subsidized for a long time. A lot of people just get by refueling the tank. Like you fill the tank of your car for, let's say, 10 cents. Then you cross the border. You take literally, what are the things? You literally suck the fuel.
Yeah, with the tube and the
very common. Yeah. You suck it out. Yeah.
And so literally you pay 10 cents and sell it across the border for $60. So that's worth that's a lot of money. You do it 2 times and that's more like enough. And that's only if you get like one car. Like people are getting like piles of fuel outside, but the government then tried like to tackle that as well and sort of like increase it, but there's always a way to again go around.
So, and what is the situation right now in Venezuela since like after all these years of going through this situation in which like the government, I guess, is still printing a lot of money when needed, and because they haven't found a different way to cope with inflation, I guess.
Yeah. Sorry, is it possible I can make just 2 points before?
Yeah, sure. Go. Yes.
Yeah. One thing, one of the big issues with that happened there is since there was a lot of imports. What happened is you import, let's say you have import of meat that cost, and you're going to sell it for, let's say, $5. But the problem is that literally make out of business the national production, because it was so cheap to sell the imported product that the national production is like, okay, kill the animal, process it, transport it, put it there. It was like double the price. So people are like, look, I'm gonna buy the imported. It's way cheaper than the national production. So that literally kill national production in a lot of things. And the other one is the part of the problem with the prices is inflation, but it's also I would say human nature, that we all of us want to have one job and live by that job. But what happens is every stage of the process is everyone is increasing their price based on how much it's going to cost me to replenish that item. So, for example, if you buy a bottle of water, let's say people that put in the bottle, and you have to give it to people that transport it, then they add additional 30% of increase so they can live by just transporting the products. Then you have the increase of the retailer, then you have the increase if there's another reseller. So you actually have increases like a ridiculous number of prices. And then when you're the final retailer that actually gave it to the customers, when you ask for the price to your supplier, it's like, look, I pay 20 for a bottle of water, so I'm going to sell it at 30, let's say. But then when you sell it, you have 10 profit. When you're going to buy again, it costs 50. So you're like, how am I going to get 50 to restock myself? So actually, you increase your prices also basically on how it's going to cost me to resupply myself as well.
Of course, yeah, I can imagine. So basically, you are anticipating the inflation in order to anticipate the increase in your
So that's why
cost.
It's inflation plus
It's
the abuse of
that's an issue actually of cash flow in when you have like very high inflation rate, because you have very different like timing in when you get the money, you pay the thing, and you get like the new resupply.
So,
That's interesting. I never thought about that, but it's
yeah. Well, actually, it's an economic issue, the difference between inflation and expected inflation. I mean, expected inflation impact as much as inflation. Whatever it takes of Mario Draghi was, I mean, it's one of the things that it's the role of the central bank to stay credible and give the idea that the inflation will not go up and so on. It's one of the main reasons they put it on the ECB, BCE status, the objective of a 2% inflation, just to give the idea that expected inflation will always be 2%.
Yeah, exactly.
And actually, the credibility thing, it's another thing that raised inflation, because right
Yeah.
now, let's say Venezuelan economy doesn't have a big credibility, and also the currency. So no one wants to trade that currency, and the less you want to trade, there is less demand. Since there is less demand, basically it's even worthless, because the amount of the stock is way higher than the demand, even internationally. And how it is actually, does like Venezuelan want to use the bolivar rather than use other currencies?
No, actually, yeah, I'm going back now. I think I can answer that question on your previous question at the same time. So all this is the problems of inherent to the inflation. So it's a lot of things, but that sort of thing stopped a little bit the last 2 years, 3 years. So what happened is just people don't want the money. Like retailers like to say, I have bolivars, I want to spend them. No one is taking them. No one. So there's like an I mean, no, okay, I'll clarify a little bit. So that this is a small
Some of
retailer.
them might want them.
Yeah. No, some let's say big retailers like Tesco's that accept the money. So banks will accept the money. Some people will accept the money. That are like the big companies, and even some small retailers will take them. But again, it's at black market price. But I mean, that's what happens. But the reality is, a lot of people is not taking it. So it's like you have the products, because they just said everything now is dollarized. Like there was like dollarization of everything. You can now there's actually more products, and there's like a bit of more revitalization of the economy. Also because the government is being actually investing a lot more in dollars, and everything is like being let's say there's a dollarization of everything. But there's also an additional component of inflation they added to the dollars. So it's like, oh, actually, I get this in dollars, but again, everyone has like a little bit their markup, their prices a little bit, so you can find the products, but they're a bit more expensive if you compare it with any country a little bit. Really, it's just like not by a massive amount, but it is considerable. You can find that prices. You can find them, but it's a bit more expensive.
Actually, it's very typical when an economy is in crisis, or there is this kind of situation in which the economy is all over the place, that the cost of goods is even higher than a developed country.
Yeah.
In many developing countries, the cost of things is higher, even though they should be lower, because there is less cost in doing a lot of stuff compared to a developed
and
country.
what happened is this is not official. Like still official currency, it's bolivars. That's the official currency. But I mean, the thing is, the government's seen a little bit more improvement, a little bit more like return if they actually let people use dollars instead of like the local currency. So yeah, it's I've been talking with a couple people. So again, yeah, they say like, look, you can find things now, but it's all more expensive. That is in dollars, and it's not like you're still earning $10 a month. So it's not really like.
I think that I was wondering about when we talked about a little bit about wages earlier. Sorry, it's just that. I mean, what's the point of going to work if you earn $10 a month and you find some other way to get your income? I mean, personally, I wouldn't go for $10 a month if I can just get $10 skimming prices on, I don't know, rice, whatever, meat, and so on. Why should I go to work?
I agree with you. There's just what happens is you have two options. Generally, you go to the informal market, which is then, okay, I'm going to be sort of like a retailer. I'm gonna, or be my sort of like own, let's say, you be like your own boss. Let's say own your own business, when you can charge a little bit, like, adapted to inflation. But like being a salaried employee with a wage or minimum wage, it's just you can't do it. The problem is, not everyone can be their own boss. Not everyone can be a retailer, because the market is saturated by people doing that. So you have your minimum wage, and you try to get by as best as you can. But for example, from my side is, I got the profession, like, experience that you can put in your CV, basically. So yeah, I worked for a few years, by $10 a month, pretty much. So yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean,
And
I
if
think
you have
that's
the chance, you go somewhere else, I guess.
yeah.
They're asking a question, actually, which is related to this, and they're asking if the public servants are paid in dollars. But I don't know, they're paid in Bolivar, right?
The as of now, I might need. I'm not entirely. I mean, a lot of people are getting paid in dollars now. Like
Okay.
medics are getting paid in dollars. A lot of people are getting paid in dollars. I'm not entirely sure if everyone in the public sector. Honestly, I cannot give an accurate, but a lot of people are getting paid on that. The problem, again, it's you're getting paid in dollars, but it's just not enough. It's still not enough, because the acquisition power is low.
Purchasing power, yes, I can imagine.
Real power. Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
low.
the real value of nominal value might be something, but the real value, it's way lower. And actually, is also adding up to on the top of the question. If they're not paid in dollars, they would have also the cost of commission of exchanging their money into dollars. And yes, exactly that. And that's the
with the
point
black
of all
market.
the black market thing. That
You can
there's a
actually
lot of
see
exchange
in social
costs.
media people saying, like, look, I'm selling 100. So sometimes people need bolivares to pay other things. So it's this exchange of agreeing and transferring money and agree your own price with other people, depending on what
There's
they need.
internal market, basically, of dollars and bolivar.
Yeah. One thing I know for sure is, like, the pension people is in bolivars.
Interesting. So you really enjoy your pension.
Yep.
Okay, I have another question actually related to this, and I don't know much related, but I remember that I read in the past, I think 1 or a couple of years ago, that there were a lot of people just going to Colombia and working and doing, like, or even shitty jobs for a weekend or something, and coming back to Venezuela, because even if they earn like very shitty money in Colombia, still coming back to Venezuela, it's a lot of dollars.
Yeah.
And they can...
That was probably not much now, since the economy,
dollarization of the
it's
situation.
moving in the strong currency. But again, before, it's like people are desperate. Like, you cannot get by. You have 2 or 3 children. Like, you're close to the border, and I mean, the wages is going to be low. They're not going to treat you well. I mean, that's everywhere. Like, even like there's xenophobia in between Latin American countries. So
Really, I didn't know there was xenophobia among Latin American.
now what happens is, like, there's a big exodus of professionals, non-professional people, and unfortunately, there's not everyone that migrated are good people that wants to work. So some of them are less scrupulous people. So there's like a bad reputation going even within Latin America.
Like
Okay,
for
got it.
instance, in New York in 910.
Yeah. So I mean, it happened a lot during that time that there was no dollars. So people, just go there, and because then those $10 that people sweat to get them, you could resell at a really high price. Those $10 because people are desperate for dollars, hungry for dollars, and then with that money you could I can get at least feed my children or so because the help of the government, the government tried to help, but it's difficult with all these different stages or different intermediaries that are just trying to make a quick money out of people, and also because the system sort of was like not perfect, and the sort of things happen.
So just like having like more high overview of all of this, it's like looking at all the situation from an economic perspective. What I see is that there's a really big impact from like political and, let's say, ideological impact on the situation rather than approaching it from an economic theory perspective. So there is an economic theory. What is preserved right now is more like trying to cope with all the people and put all the people in a good situation, but this is basically driving the situation even worse year by year in a way.
In a way, yes. Again, since people have been the economy has been dollarized, not officially. I mean, some people are it's getting a little bit better because I mean you have a little bit increase in prices, but I mean it's not crazy. So you can even save a little bit if you can. So it is improving, but the thing is the government again prices are low. They still have high need to spend money on the products because again they're still a big participant in the economy. And I'm the person that says like, look, I think the government should be more like a moderator and should be just like taxing instead of being that active, because being that active you really need to manage your money more properly.
Yeah, also, if there is so much money in the market and there's not even taxes in order to reduce the amount of money, that yeah, of course, it's driving.
Yeah. And
There's a
also,
huge imbalance, I would say.
yeah, I think I'm not entirely sure how the taxes are working now since the economy is dollarized. So I don't know if you have to pay taxes in dollars. So that's something I'm not sure. But if that's it, that's a huge now also income for the companies in
Actually,
dollars. I'm not sure how it works. So,
I was also hearing about the fact that in Venezuela there is like a lot of people turn into also Bitcoin because of like cryptocurrencies
yeah.
because they're more stable. So is it true that they are more used, or did they save in a way that they put money on those?
Even the government created their own cryptocurrency
Yeah, there was
um, called Petro.
Ribombo that said that there is a cryptocurrency is linked to the petrol, as you said. So
Yeah, but
interesting. I
it
didn't know that.
works. It works a very different way that other cryptocurrencies work, because cryptocurrencies have like inherent value. I mean, they're not backed up by any international reserves. It's basically the
Yeah,
market, us
exactly.
giving value to Bitcoin or whatever.
Yeah, they're
But
decentralized, but
that currency is backed up by the oil reserves in a couple fields in the country. So they haven't even been
so I
extracted. So
wouldn't
it's
call it like a cryptocurrency then. It's very
So
central. It's
a
not
sort of digital
decentralized.
currency, but not a real
Yeah, it is.
cryptocurrency, right?
yeah.
And also,
I mean,
it's also it's also linked to a commodity, so it's like going back to gold standard.
yeah,
Instead of
yeah,
gold, you have petrol, but
yeah.
very different.
And I think they're actually paying some. Oh, okay, now that you're bringing the topic, some local, I'm sorry, not local, government people are getting paid in petrol as well. So I think they're using it, but honestly, I'm not entirely sure to what extent.
They also paid in petrol.
And by the way, I'm curious.
I would be love to be paying petrol because here is very expensive. But no, I guess the situation is very different there. And
yeah, but
one
honestly,
thing they can do is reselling it basically abroad.
I'm not entirely sure if Wall Street. I think Wall Street. I'm not entirely sure they lifted, but they classify it as how is it like there's some cryptocurrencies that are classified as the word's not coming to mind, but it's like so basically you can make like bad things with that currency or sort of like clean funds using that currency. And I missed the word.
Laundering money.
Laundering money. Like money laundering.
Yeah, but it's a classification the Wall Street give to cryptocurrencies that they don't fully trust. Like, I mean, it could be used.
No idea then.
There are cryptocurrencies like, for example, they classify. This is not the case of the petrol, but that, for example, they fix a day. Oh, actually, I'm going to increase. You tell everyone, oh, I'm going to increase the prices or for this cryptocurrency for this particular day, and then I'm going to sell everything. Then it jumps up. So it's like it gives itself to being exploited and used for not real trading, not real market sort of value. But that's the classification they give. But yeah, that's one of the cryptocurrencies I think they're using. No, I cannot say if it's used for bad reasons, but Wall Street classified as that.
Okay, yeah, and not a clean currency then.
I don't know.
Okay,
and that was actually implemented after I left, so I'm not. I wasn't exposed to that. I didn't have exposure.
Yeah, even though like described as you said, it's more like yes, it's a digital currency which is linked to petrol. I wouldn't call it really a cryptocurrency. It lacks a lot of many, let's say, characteristic of a cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
May I ask you something that I was wondering? Because as there is some sort of digitalization, like, for example, by using digital currencies anyway, or I suppose also system of payments. I suppose credit cards, I suppose, are used because it's way easier to go and pay with a credit card instead of bags of money. I was wondering about the financial system because always getting back to the banking system. Yeah, I'm curious about that because I don't know if you know it. Of course, it's more like a technical question. But the issue is how can it survive? I mean, I suppose it would collapse because also handling financial transaction, handling payments with cards, handling the entire system requires someone who does that, and requires also some technological advancements, some technological things that are some infrastructure that are supposed to be present.
That basically cost to make it run.
Yeah. No, unfortunately, I really don't have like an answer to that.
I guess it's a pretty technical question. I was curious because I would say like any bank would collapse, I think, or something like that. Also, the system of payments, like if you got to handle everyone buying a bag of rice and paying with card because you can't go around with a bag of money.
I mean, for what I've heard, like it's good because again, you still have to pay. Let's say if people use your credit cards, you still have to pay. The percentage to Visa, MasterCard. So they've been quite good there. But like for the bank point of view,
because it's the same circuit, like the MasterCard and so on.
Sorry?
It's the same circuit: Visa, MasterCard, American Express, and so on.
Okay.
Got it.
Yeah.
Actually, I wanted to check I just checked the interest rate of Venezuela because I was curious about since we're talking about this level of inflation, And so I was like, okay, what is the interest rate? Since here to fuel the economy is around 0, but I guess there you don't have to fuel economy; it's the other way around. According to Google, I don't know when it says like 2021, but I don't have like the proper. I can show you my screen so you can see this. Wait a second, and it says that it's like 39%. I've never seen an interest rate which is so high.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just
But I don't think they give interest rates. I mean, you can open bank accounts in dollars, but I don't think they give interest rates for those.
I can imagine also because the Fed yes, the Federal Reserve just doesn't have any interest rate, so I guess.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. There's also the key. Like in the 90s, it was around like 60%.
Yeah.
And then goes down, and then recently just popped up, and it's 39 right now.
Yep. Yeah.
In January. So consider like having like a mortgage that you have your interest rate on the mortgage, and basically every how you call it, every installment, it's basically with 40%, let's say 45% interest rate.
Yeah, but it's quite difficult again to get there because people don't really have like, in order to get loans, you need to get like a certain profile, to fulfill a certain profile.
No, yeah, of course, I can imagine.
Many people like they cannot really. So yeah, but honestly, on this topic, I'm not that familiar. I cannot give like any insight of or experience or anything that I've experienced.
Yeah, I was just interested out of my personal interest, as like in a normal economy, like in let's say in when you study economics, like the interest rate is the driver of the currency, and in order to drive the currency, so let's say that a normal economic environment doesn't, or let's say theory doesn't work much with the situation in Venezuela, because the numbers are pretty exploded, I would say.
Yeah, and I think there's no like official inflation rates since like the central bank hasn't issued inflation rates since at least 5, 6, 7 years ago. So there's no really public inflation rates as well for those.
Imagine. Let me check. Inflation rate.
You could probably find
the last
it, but
one.
it's not
You're
like
right.
official.
Last one was 2016.
Yeah, it's not official.
Yeah,
not
it was 254%.
Yeah, and that's the official one.
Yes, that's the official one. Actually, in 2018 says, well, I can show again. It's like 60,000%, but it's just stata.com. I don't know how official is that. It's like data you.
Yeah, I mean,
data collector. So.
Yeah.
So basically, this is like, how was it? It was like 20% and something on the 90s, and then there was a peak on 2018, and then goes down, and now it says it's 5%. No, sorry, 500. Sorry, it's 6,500. Sorry, I thought there was a dot. There's no dot.
Oh yeah, it's different there. Like, yeah. So I mean, but again, this is really unofficial. But inflation is quite high. It's conservative. I'm being conservative, and it's three digits. But
well, also the official one is 3 digits, so you're not far from that.
Yeah, minimum. So yeah, I just wanted to bring up, like, it's quite. There's a lot of things tied up in inflation, so it's not just printing money. Okay, it literally affects pretty much every aspect, it has affected a lot of things. So it's quite dangerous to play a lot with inflation.
I would say so, yes.
Yeah.
May I ask you another thing? I'm gonna do something bad and ask you an opinion, but not on Venezuela, on us, like Europeans. What do you think and what do you do?
That, Dario, just a second, because there was an interesting question about Venezuela, and then we can move on from another perspective from a Venezuelan living in Europe. There was a question from Fede, if I remember right. She was asking, wait a second, I have to look for it because I accidentally. Yes, it was Fede. I accidentally reset my page, so that's why I disappeared for a few seconds before, because I had not touched stuff. Anyway, so Fede asked like an hour ago or half an hour ago, maybe an hour ago, she asked about like what's the situation with coronavirus there and how they're managing it, and so how it is with the hospitals and how it is with the situation there. If you have any knowledge about that.
So for again, for what I've heard, at the first it wasn't impacted. Latin America was not impacted as much. In particular, Venezuela at the beginning, like it's a country not many people go. But there's one theory that it came because one of the sort of like strategic allies from the country is Iran. So Iran gives some services. I'm not entirely sure which services, but apparently some of them had coronavirus. So that's where it all started. And the situation as of now is they're rolling out the Russian vaccine. I think
one.
Yeah, they're rolling that one out. For what I've heard, it's being used for government officials and let's say doctors, medics, like people that work in the hospitals. Those are like that take the priorities. And as I'm guessing, as after the rollout, they'll start rolling out like people third age, going from there.
Yeah,
But the situation, it's been going on and off. Like a lot of people are not really paying too much attention to it. There was like seasons like they actually had to open like temporary hospital area because there were a lot of people with COVID, but then it went down. But then as I've heard, it's go back up again. So it's pretty much like any other country. But yeah.
Well, in front of a virus, we are all the same, apparently.
Yeah.
Going back to what I was going to ask, I was asking you an opinion about what do you answer and what do you think of European people that say, let's go back to our own currency and start printing money so we can solve our debt problem.
Yeah. There's, I think if it's done if you plan it properly, if you actually don't rush it, know what you're going to do with the currency. I mean, it's not a bad thing, but that increases your risk. Let's say you can start printing your own money whenever you want and sort problems like that way. Because again, for example, Latin America, Venezuela is using dollars, Ecuador is using dollars. You cannot print dollars, so you have to get by with what you have. I think Europe is a bit different. You have the Central European Bank, but I think every country has like a way to print a little bit money, but you have to follow certain guidelines from the Central European Bank. I believe so. I could be wrong. I'm wrong.
No, the ECB is completely independent and decides how much to print and so on. The national banks may ask for money or for favorable interest rates and so on. But it's still in the power of the ECB to decide whether or not they can get money.
Yeah,
So-
let's say that national central banks are just like executors of what the
Okay.
European central banks decide.
Okay.
And well, in Italy, the Italian central bank is also an authority for regulating the market and checking basically the regulation about banks and stock market. That's what they do. They are more regulators rather than printing money.
Yeah. So I mean, overall, in my opinion, if you want to roll out, like, go back to, I think it's lira, right? Was the previous two?
Yeah, lira, yes.
So I mean, you can go back, but I mean, you really need to make sure that you roll it out in a appropriate way. You do planning on that, but again, increase risk of inflation, because if you actually want to roll out your own currency because you want to print money, that's just literally just no. That you should not
Doesn't
do.
make much sense. Yeah.
No, you should
I
not.
was
do.
waiting for this last part of answer.
You know, because actually all the people supporting this idea are coming back to lira, and then we can own our central bank, and the central bank will support the government to print the money that the government needs and the people needs. Is like central banks in every democratic countries are
Should-
independent,
should
even
be.
if it's the should, yes. Well, it's an assumption in economics that they are independent, but yes,
Venezuela is not
they also
independent.
should be.
It's a ramification of the government.
Yeah, but it's actually true to say it should be, but also in the US, they are independent, even though
Yeah.
there might be like some.
Normally it is. Normally it is.
Yeah, but also in Italy, they were theoretically independent, but in the 80s and from the 70s to the up to the 80s and a half 90s, the government was pressuring a lot the central bank to print. And then at a certain point they state, no, we are independent, you cannot rule basically that what we print. But yes, technically they are independent.
Yeah, and also
And they should be.
Yeah, and I think the euro, it's strong because I mean it's the European Union, it's different countries, all the reserves, everything. And again, if let's say you have a problem in one country, like all your currencies, all you guys, all the countries are, let's say, united, and it has reputation outside. Like, look, this is euro. This is like the currency of the European Union of all these countries. So it has a high reputation. That's why it's valuated a little bit above dollar as well. So I mean, there are other factors as well, but this is just one of them.
No, sure, exactly. If you go back to your own currency, let's say going back to lira, it's the reputation of just the Italian country. And so if the Italian economy is not well seen by the global market, you can even stop to print currency. But since your reputation goes down, the demand goes down and the inflation goes up. So you're basically importing inflation.
I mean, again, it is true that you have your own freedom, but with freedom, you also,
have
you
responsibilities.
can make your own mistakes. You can make your own mistakes, and that will affect negatively.
And may add that Italian politicians are pretty easily mistaken, let's say.
Not a great ruler. But that's the thing, actually. When you're a small country, you are very rigid to whatever happens around the world and to globalization. You're not elastic. You basically are importing every decision from abroad. It's like you can decide on your own and be sovereign and also be responsible, but still you're a small country and you have to adapt to the bigger one. So if you're part of European Union, you are a big country which can impose in a way what they want. Well, not what they want, but yes, it's a bigger economy. So
but again, you can. It's not a bad thing. I mean, the UK have their own currency and they get by with it, but again, it's not abuse.
But you have to consider also like the size of the UK economy, also in terms of commercial.
There are different
So
factors.
If you look also, I don't know, corporate America in Europe, let's say like American corporation, how they sell in Europe, and they sell in the European market as a whole. 50% of products are sold in the UK and the other 50 in Europe. So for them, Well, not all the companies. I'm talking about the companies I work for. I remember that like the revenues were 50 UK and 50 the rest of Europe.
Yeah.
So in that situation, it's an economy which is pretty strong. But if you are the 5% of the European economy, let alone compared to the rest of the world, I wouldn't say that you have this imprint. But yes, true. You can go back and be independent, but you have to face the fact that
and in particular, actually the reason they're telling you is just to abuse of the currency, the new currency. So if
Any
it's the main reason is to abuse the currency, like no, don't even. You're wasting time there.
No, exactly. And actually, that's why there were a lot of fears in the past few weeks globally, because there were like plans from the US to print a lot of money, like a 2 trillions or something of dollars, because Biden wanted to put a lot of cash in the market, and the stock market was like, what? Wait a second, what do you really want to do? Do you want to throw that amount of dollars in the market?
Yeah. But the thing is, I mean, if you have a massive economy, I mean, again, it really depends on how massive is economy.
How big you
because
are,
if you because if it's back up, for example, if it's a small country and you print 1 million, that probably is a lot, and that dilutes the acquisition power of all the people. But if you're a monster and you have like a massive, but you can print probably 2-3 million, it'll increase 1-digit increase of a percentage. I mean, it's fine. It's fine to print money as long as you keep the inflation in control and under 5%, 4%.
No, exactly, and it's always the same. It's like Europe and US, I think is 2%. Europe is 2% for sure. US, I think it's like their target. It's 2% as well, maybe 3%. Did we talk about like last week? It was
we talked about it. I mean, they've got, I think, the target still at 2%. I think the thing is, it's not the main objective. So in some years, in some period, they went to like 3 or 4% inflation. Meanwhile, Europe has been more stable, a little bit more stable, I think.
Yeah.
Wait a second. A huge question, veramente domandone. What do you think about adopting like a unique world and global currency, like one currency around the globe, just one? Well, in a way, if I have to start, in a way, dollar, it's a global currency, let's say, but it's not. I think you were talking about like a currency that is driven for all the world. Depends.
I mean, again, I think this is one of the things, as you said, like the more we unify, the more that I think it's not bad, because the more people, the more let's say, this is just in the aspect, let's say, from currency. This is my opinion. If there are more people,
it's all opinion here. It's not that we have an objective answer.
So I think a unified currency would be okay. It'll be bad for all these people trading in different currencies that lose their jobs, but I would say I would say it's good, but again, it's open to abuse. I mean, depending on how it's structured, the entities, how is it controlled. So it'll be good, but again, it could be open to abuse depending on how it's structured.
I would say that the issue the issue I see is like, yes, true, there won't be any exchange, so there will be a lot of savings on that side, because there is a lot of companies, people, and there is an entire market running thanks to an differences in exchange rate. Well, there is also people trade, like really not investing but trading on that, like in forex. The thing is, and that's I think I was talking when I was talking about Europe and the European and a common currency in Europe. Already in Europe, it's difficult to manage it because we have different kind of capitalism. We are a Western country, a Western world, but still every country have different frameworks, different capitalism, different institution, and even taxation is different. So
Most.
you have to have basically the same economy, because if you have like a dollar in a developing country, it will destroy the country, because they need a very weak currency that they can devaluate and be competitive.
Yeah, that
On
yeah, that is a good
and
point.
dollar will kill them in that situation.
Yeah.
So a unique currency, it's a great utopia. I think it would be great if everyone would be developed. And
Yeah.
if you're a developed country, a unique currency, it's what you aim for, because it would be really reducing the cost and reducing the barriers in a way. On the other side, we don't live in a world which is flattened with all the same economy wherever you go. So it's not very applicable for all the developing country. It's very,
Yeah.
even though depends also on the developing country, because for instance, China have their own currency, but they use a lot of dollars, and actually they're benefiting a lot of using dollars. So it's a very complex thing. But
May I
Dario,
add
what do you
something?
think about it?
I would like to add something, because I agree with both of you clearly. Moreover, the issue is, I think, is the difference between monetary policy and fiscal policy. This is an issue, as Jacopo said, that is already present in the EU, and it's a big issue because it's mostly what is the next step for Europe, at least what is needed.
To unify to some common fiscal policies.
Yeah,
yes,
exactly, because having a unique currency with different fiscal policies is a little bit a problem for Europe. So I can imagine on a global size how it could be. But on the other side, I was thinking, even in the Europe, there are some differences. As Jacopo said, some countries relies on a currency that can be evaluated pretty quickly. Some regions, some countries that joined the euros recently, like Hungary, I think, Bulgaria, and so on, had some economics.
In that situation, you mean European Union? I don't think they use the euro, do they? Go on and let me check.
Yeah, but they are planning to get into. I mean, I know. I'm pretty sure that Hungary had florins, but had the double change when I went there like a couple of years ago. So probably now it is euro.
Let me check. Yeah, but you can go on with your.
Yeah. Anyway, just being part of the eurozone, they are like sort of normalizing the economy towards the euro area. Let's say. So I'm not sure it wouldn't be that way also for developing countries in the case of a sort of unique currency. I mean, economics, and I'm as an economic man, I agree, says that it's a bad idea. But I'm not that sure. Let's say, could be not that bad.
Well, as
what
we were
would
saying before,
there, though, it's much harder.
No, yeah, exactly. As we were saying before with Venezuela, actually, if you have a country which doesn't have a big reputation or a strong economy, it's actually useful in a way, because you can avoid hyperinflation, because your currency is stable, because whatever is the price, it's the same currency wherever you go. Even though you can have like internal inflation, which is not run by the quantity of money but other inefficiencies. But it's still lower than printing money as if it's toilet paper. Anyway, I check also the countries.
My fault
and
about Hungary.
Exactly. Bulgaria and Romania not yet, but there are some countries like Montenegro and Kosovo which are not part of the EU, but they unilaterally decide to use euro. So they use euro even though they're not part of European Union.
And also
So
Hungary.
It's like Ecuador, which Salvador was saying that basically they use US dollar even though they didn't agree with the US about that, but they just said, "Oh, we use that currency. That's it."
Yeah, and about Hungary, my fault. They tried to get euro, but they had like the double currency for a while, and the problem is they had too high budget deficit, inflation, public debts, and so on. So they gave up and stayed with forints.
Yeah.
Well, they have also political issue in that country, I would say.
Yeah, so no, bad idea. I was thinking, I was just trying to go against the main the main idea, but seems like it's still the best.
Good. So, well, we've done 2 hours so far, 2 hours and 5 minutes. We can talk about it whenever you want. I don't know how long you want to continue talking. I have basically topics to talk for hours. There is, for instance, we both live in the UK. We can also talk about Brexit from different point of view from what we live and our opinion about that. Not Brexit, sorry. Well, Brexit and coronavirus and whatever is the situation here, which is another thing. Ragazzi, avete domande voi? Adesso parso in italiano visto che vi parlo a voi. Avete domande di qualche tipo? Volete fare domande? Ne avete fatte tantissime, mi è piaciuto. Tutte interessantissime, quindi grazie a tutti quelli che hanno fatto domande. Avete altre domande, altri topic di cui vorreste parlare e vedere? Intanto vi lascio scrivere perché ora che io vi dico le cose vi arriva a voi scrivete, ci impiega un po' di tempo. So I asked them if they have any questions that we can go on with. Otherwise, well, so far, thank you so much, Salvador, because it really was so interesting to talk about like Venezuela from a different perspective and not from outside reading stuff, but from someone who lived there. But basically, from what I got, like summing it up, is that since it's a petro country, you rely a lot on that. When there were crises and crashes on petrol prices, basically, it was managed in a way that, let's say, it wasn't managed in a way to I don't know how to say it, to contrast like the crisis like other petro countries did, and instead of fixing the situation, they went through. So the country went to improve the economic situation of everyone, and we're thinking about like everyone. And I don't blame them for that. It's an amazing idea and everything, but how they manage it was not. Let's say a long run or long run perspective and thing.
There's something called resource curse or the paradox of plenty.
So again?
Yeah, there's something called resource curse and paradox of plenty. I don't know if you heard of it. So yeah, so basically what happens is it's a phenomenon. It's classified as a phenomenon of countries that have like a lot of natural resources, that have less economic growth, less democracy, or worse development outcomes than countries with fewer or none natural resources.
That's interesting. Well, I guess there are plenty of study on that, but I haven't checked that. That's interesting. Actually, you're right, because the interesting thing is that if you have a lot of resources, when you have all of those, there are like few people managing those resources, which is might be the government, might be like few families. I'm thinking about different countries. Also, Africa is the same. They have a lot of resources and they've been exploited a lot by few.
Russia, maybe.
I don't know. Russia, it's in
I don't know.
Russia, it's a clear example. It's got tons of natural gas and oil and.
They have an oligarchy, but I don't. It's. I don't know. I was thinking, like, for instance, Africa. They have a lot of raw materials, and they've been really exploited. And the power and rich people are few people, and they're very poor as a country as a whole. And actually, Europe, we basically just have consumed all our resources in the centuries ago, and now we're just importing, and still we are richer than them. That we are importing from them.
Yeah,
that's actually interesting.
Yeah, my point of view is because since you don't have that many resources, you have to invest in your people. You have to invest in your economy. You have to invest if you tourism and taxes. Well, you invest in infrastructure. You invest on that. So because you have resources, extract them, sell it. It's easy. It's easy. So you don't the part of investing in people. It's done. I'm not saying it's done, but it's not like the main focus. But again, the revenue comes from natural resources.
That's a very good point. Actually, it's about infrastructure and creating like a future, and creating something which is an investment for the future instead of just getting the money and basically spending them. And Fede is asking to you because we touch it but not explicitly talk about that. But basically, she's asking if there is a structure on how you translate previdenza sociale.
Pension funds.
Oh, thank you. Yes.
Like pension
because
programs,
you said that the
pension funds,
pension
some
are
way to cover up the real power of money for people who are in pension, who are retired.
Yeah, what's the structure of the pension funds? Just to tell you, in Italy, it was for in the past, it was that you were getting a percentage of your last salary, no matter how much money you gave for the pensions fund. Now it's completely different. Now you give like an amount, and the money you're giving, they are reproportionate to the time you're gonna be you're gonna be retired, and basically divided. It's very oversimplified this way.
I think the question is more focused on the towards the inflation problem, I guess, more than the real structure of the
I don't know. It's written. Have you reading the question in Italian? Can you see the question?
I can see them. I can see it.
Oh, no, okay, because it's literally written. What is the structure of the pension fund?
Yeah, okay.
I don't know if Fede, are you talking about the impact of inflation on the funds, or just how la dico in italiano. Si è più focalizzata sull'inflazione, che impatto ha l'inflazione sulla previdenza sociale, o proprio come è strutturata la previdenza sociale in Venezuela? Qua abbiamo un dibattito tra me e Dario su questa domanda.
Sì, più che altro perché mi viene da dire che è come è strutturata in rapporto comunque con l'inflazione, non proprio come... Cioè...
No, nella domanda non è menzionato, per quello non lo dicevo.
But, but in any case, I think the structuring is how many months you contributed. That's like the structure. Depending on how many months you contributed, you sort of like pile a certain amount of money historically, and that this is something that obviously, like if you have your employer or something, or even the government, I believe they add like the extra and they give you, but as soon as you hit the retiring age,
so
you get
it's
like your checks.
Like it's in the UK and basically also in Italy.
Like in the UK.
Okay,
but it's the adjusting to inflation is and it's in the local currency.
Yeah, no, exactly, and that's actually the second question. It's correct, like what Dario was saying. Basically, yes, since they are giving the money today, but they're gonna receive the money like in years, and already in 1 year, the basically the value of the currency is not even half. If it's 5,000%, it means that it's literally reduced. It's one. I don't know how to say that in English, like the number, but basically it decreased a lot.
Yeah, it decreases a lot. I mean, it's not
just
really...
to say, just to give a comparison. It's if today you need $1 to purchase bread, in a year with an inflation rate of 1,000%, it means that you need $1,000 to get the same amount of bread. So consider that with your fund, it's the other way around. So if you get 10, and you could have purchased like 10 piece of bread now, in 1 year you cannot afford not even uno su 100, un centesimo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is like that. I mean, I just trying to think, when was the last time I got a comment from a pensioned person. But I think it's like It might, you can
Fede
call.
added, sorry, Fede added stuff like to the question. Basically, she's saying, fundamentally, if it exists, like a pension fund, which basically said yes, and if the money are guaranteed in a way, which they are. The problem is that it's the inflation, and so basically she was saying, nonostante, even if the economy has issues, can they basically guarantee the money, and or are they under risk of coverage? From what I get, basically they are printing money. So in any case,
I mean, the coverage
when
you
they need
get it
money, they just
because
print them.
how it works is so what happens is the pension is deposited in a bank owned by the government. So it's easy, like just transfer the funds, and it's guaranteed they'll get the money that would be enough. It's a different story, but yeah, it is covered. They do get the pensions, and I never heard. I mean, there have been probably 2 delays of paying pensions because but they usually always pay. There's not really much of a problem from that side.
It's just that you can make much, I guess.
Yeah.
It will be
I mean,
worth in a few.
In some years, you're gonna get pension, but you're not. I mean, not gonna.
Yeah, there's
yeah, probably.
There's a phenomenon that you have to, like young people, you have to take care of the elderly. Like they cannot subsist with just a pension. Just not possible.
I can imagine. Also, because if it's like in Italy, contributiva, so basically based on how much you gave, it's obviously it's granted, but it's worthless. So it is granted because it's easy. They print so much money that 10 today, it's basically nothing tomorrow. So it's like, okay, I owe you nothing. I can give you nothing. The problem is that exactly you basically they owe you nothing nominally, and basically you don't get enough. So it is granted, but it's worthless. So
what
like
it could happen? What could happen is the bank might have shortage of cash, and if you go and try to withdraw, you don't have cash, but you can still transfer or make electronic payments with it. So, for what it's worth.
Got it. So basically, you said that every year they increase the price of pension and also public servant, but yes, that's irrelevant. If they even if they double it, the inflation is like 10. It's 100 times. So if you double it, it's like still not coping with inflation. Got it. And then Lorenzo is asking, where do we met? And me and you, we were colleagues when we were working here in the UK in my first job here. We've been colleagues for 1 year, and then they decided to leave us to a different destiny, and we went to different companies.
Yeah. It was really interesting all that time we spent. It was really interesting.
Yeah, no, exactly. Actually, we'd been in an audit together in South Africa, and it was me, you, and Ali.
Ali, yeah. Really interesting. That was like one of the best ones, honestly.
Well, South Africa is one of the best countries you can ever go to on audit. Cape Town was one of the best places ever. Do you remember the penguins?
Oh yeah.
I remember we were freaking out when we seen penguins. We've been on a penguins colony in close to Cape Town with this which is called Boulders Beach.
Boulders Beach.
A lot of fun.
It was really good. Yeah.
And then there was also the baboons at Capo di Buona Speranza, Good Hope Cape of Good Hope. There was like a babu which was eating from a KFC bucket. I still remember that.
Oh yeah. I think I still have the picture or something. Yeah, they're getting really violent.
Video. It was very violent. Yeah, very territorial. Protecting the KFC bucket.
It was empty, but it was protecting.
Yeah. Good stuff. Yeah, we work. Did you come? No, you didn't come with me to India because you were in Egypt.
No,
I think
no. I was doing something else. yeah, I was doing another project, another audit.
Yeah. Yeah, we had a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was good.
Actually, it was a good job. I really love it.
Yeah.
And our boss was really nice, so I really love it. It was a good time. So,
Oh well.
well, guys, it's been 2 hours and 20 minutes. We can call it for today, or we can talk about something else.
I'm free to talk till 10:30. Afterwards, it gets a little bit. I need to do something else, so I apologize for that.
Yeah, sure. So another 10 minutes, but yeah. I don't know, Dario, if you have any topic that you want to discuss or you would like to go through like in 10 minutes, or questions you might have for Salvador.
Actually, I'm pretty sure nothing on top of my mind, let's say. So I'm pretty sure
Stuff to date.
we went through a lot of topics, and right now I don't think about anything to add to this episode.
Okay.
So I don't know if you want something.
Yeah. Well.
Actually, I got one thing to say,
yeah,
that it
sure.
was a pleasure to meet you, Sal. That's another thing.
Yeah.
So we're gonna get the first time I can get there, and to Jaco we're gonna get a beer maybe.
Oh yeah, I really hope that we open soon so we can get to have a beer all together and then drink a beer instead of staying home.
Yeah.
So that would be actually a good
That'll
thing.
be great. That'll be great.
Yeah, I'm missing like when was the last time that a pub was open? I don't know, months ago. I don't even remember a pub.
But was it October that there was like they
so.
lacked the restrictions a bit? Yeah. Sorry. One thing that I mentioned, that one of the measures that because again with inflation that high, they changed currency. They print new bills at least 5 different times. So because one of the things they did to sort of like tackle inflation, because again, you have it never reached the like Zimbabwe that you have one banknote of 100 million. But what they did is at least 2-3 times to remove 3 zeros, and then print the bills again. So, but the thing is, that's just unfortunately that was more, it didn't work. It's more like a cosmetic sort of thing, because again, the acquisition power is the same, so the wages are the same, but it's just like few zeros that but it was just another thing they tried to implement, but unfortunately it was just cosmetic.
Actually, that's an interesting thing, that you add zeros every now and then.
Yeah, exactly. How many zeros are we getting into now?
Yeah, I was curious as well about the number of zeros.
I mean, you can remove 10 zeros and then say, oh, we have the strongest currency in the world, but I mean, not really. Like the acquisition power, like people just would be getting like 0.00001 wage a month. So it's just, fortunately, one thing, again, they had good intentions, but yeah, it's just cosmetic. Didn't really work.
Interesting. Well, that's interesting. And actually, I forgot about that. Exactly. If it's like at a percentage of like 1,000%, it means that $1 today, it's like it will be like $1,000 tomorrow, and it means that you add the 3 zeros to a bill, and they have the same value. So it's interesting actually how many zeros you can get. And well, we can also think about like the time of Weimar Republic, when in Germany basically they were going to purchase the bread with literally with the carry-on wheel.
Oh yeah. That's I mean, I've heard things like people like from Germany, like they're really afraid of what experience after the wars.
And that's why in Europe we have like 2% of inflation, because Germany is so scared of getting to high inflation. They are basically forbidding and blocking and vetoing basically every, not every, but the vast majority of proposal that basically might lead to an increase of inflation, which is higher than 2%. So that's why they're also very, let's say...
I want to break... we say in Italy, break a spear.
No. Okay, like, be in favor. I don't know how to say it in English.
I don't know how to say
what you mean.
I don't get the right way of saying in English. But anyway, the thing is, I must say that Germany is not that strict. For example, they were in favor of issuing the recovery bond and let's say printing money, because after all, as you explained, some part of it's more than the expected money that was due for investments, and this might lead to a little bit of inflation too. Anyway, so they're scared of inflation, but they're still open to discuss it. In the case of
printing money. Printing money, it's fine. I mean, you can do it. I mean, there's certain occasion that it's fine. You have to do it. And again, one digit, I mean, it's fine. It's not really going to impact or reduce the value of, for example, your savings or anything. But it's just to be responsible with it and not just get used to just, use it or used that you have that tool. But
exactly. Or using that to cope with like inefficiency somewhere else instead of controlling the inefficiency, just printing money because it's easier. But then you didn't solve the problem generating the need for money, and you have way more money on the market. So you have two issues now to solve.
That's it. And again, you're solving the problem because people will have more acquisition at first, but the market's going to adapt to that new influx of currency, and at the end, it's like you're losing acquisition power, and everyone's getting poorer, basically.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And just on closing with a bright thing is like also Ribomboclat is say that non credo that he's forgetting like the flavor of beer on top since last time we had the chance to be in a pub basically or a bar drinking a proper beer on top.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
So that was super interesting. Thank you so much for your time, and the discussion was so great. And actually, I really appreciate that doing this in English as well, because it's been a while.
I apologize.
So long in English.
Yeah, I apologize to you guys and the audience. I know that it's Italian, but I never actually learned just so. Yeah,
it's not a problem. Actually, I want to thank every.
Sorry.
Sorry, you were saying because I was talking over you.
Nothing. I was just apologizing for my English because I'm a little bit rusty.
No, it's fine. No problem.
I can tell you about more people which are actually rusty, and but no, I want to thank everyone that is here tonight because you basically listened to for 2 hours and a half a conversation with 3 people speaking in English, which is not your first language. And you didn't ask even once to translate that in Italian. So thank you so much for being here. I really hope that you enjoyed this. I'm saying this in English so also Salvador can understand. And then I will say that the same in Italian. But no, thank you so much for everyone that is here tonight. And I really hope that also people that will see this like broadcast later on when it's recorded and on YouTube or even here on Twitch, they will enjoy it. I think that there is a lot of good stuff in it, and I'm really glad that we managed to do this. And thank you for saying yes to my offer to do this thing, Salvador, because I love it.
Yeah, no problem.
It's
glad to do it.
Ask for a dinner.
I can give an hamburger and that's it. That's all I can afford right now. 5 guys with like regular chips.
Okay. Well,
Va bene ragazzi, grazie mille per essere stati qua Grazie mille veramente per esservi sorbiti e comunque essere stati 2 ore e mezza a ascoltarci parlare in inglese. Veramente siete meravigliosi, ma che bella community che ho. Quindi grazie mille per essere stati qui, grazie mille per le domande che state tutte interessantissime e on spot. Abbiamo tirato fuori veramente gli argomenti secondo me bellissimi, spero che vi sia piaciuta e spero riusciremo a fare anche altre live di questo tipo, magari posso anche chiamare Salvador un'altra volta per parlare di altro, insomma si può fare. Grazie mille per esserci stati e noi ci sentiamo settimana prossima, sempre al venerdì alle 9 di sera, ora italiana. Facciamo un'altra live e questo weekend, domenica alle 9, faccio un'altra live in cui parliamo proprio di piattaforme online, faccio quella su De Giro che mi chiedete da una vita. Mi è arrivato, me l'hanno attivato, ci ho dato un occhio oggi, sono riuscito a dargli un occhio, domani me lo guardo meglio, così domenica ne parliamo e vediamo anche un po' come utilizzarlo. Se siete qui, non seguite ancora questo canale, vi piacciono queste live, volete vederne altre, mettete il follow, così sapete dov'è. Mi stavo soffocando la mia stessa saliva. E comunque no, veramente grazie mille. E buona serata e buonanotte a tutti, alla prossima. Thank you so much, Salvador. See you next time.
Okay,
And we're gonna cheers another time and have a beer together.
Yeah,
And also
sounds good.
with Dario and stuff.
Yeah,
have a good night. Cheers.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye, everyone.
End of the broadcast. Ciao ciao.